Okay, good morning, everyone. I wasn't able to give a class today at the proper time, but I'm giving it now, which is later. So you're seeing now a substitute class. A substitute class. Okay. This week we learned about Korach, the whole story about Korach, and how it was that Korach disagreed with Moses, and we learned that Moses, he wanted to bring blessing to the world, and that was the idea of the Kohanim, and etc. But we didn't learn that much. I told you a story, but we didn't learn that much about the 28th day of Sivan. That was yesterday. The 28th day of Sivan was in 1941, was the date that the Rebbe and his wife came to America. And that began a whole new, how do you say, a level of dynamic importance to the and emphasis on bringing Mashiach. Okay, Maimonides says, I mean, probably the most ignored and least understood topic in Judaism is Mashiach, to the degree that even when people even mention it, it already arouses in the mind of big rabbis, something's wrong over this, something's wrong with this person. You can't talk about Mashiach, and Mashiach is going to be a person. This guy is the Mashiach, but that's not Judaism. Okay, this is a tremendous misconception and misunderstanding. And Chabad basically exists only in order to dispel all this ignorance about what Mashiach is, and even more to dispel the indifference, and even more to make everybody enthusiastic, not just to get rid of the bad. So Maimonides says that Mashiach is the goal of everything, and anyone who doesn't believe in him, in his arrival, and wait for him coming, right? The Mamtin, what is the language of the Rambam? To wait for his arrival, as he's denying the whole Torah. So if you see some rabbi or whatever standing up and saying, this person cannot be Mashiach, etc., so just ask that rabbi, good, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Because every Jew has to be waiting impatiently for Mashiach, every Jew. And you have to know what you're waiting for. Right? That was the whole idea of the Maimonides, that he listed criteria for what the Mashiach is. So anybody that says this person cannot be the Mashiach, so you just ask him, what are you waiting for? If what he's waiting for, it complies with these criteria of Mashiach that the Rambam writes, then he's on the right track. If not, then he's not on the right track, or he's not on the track at all. Right? It's not on the track at all. That's what the Maimonides also writes, that Christianity is idolatry and it's terrible and it wants to destroy Judaism as well. But they got one good thing about it, is that they're waiting for Mashiach. And they believe in the written Torah. They don't believe in the oral. We're not going to into that. But the idea of Mashiach, that's very important. That's very, very important idea. And they got the whole idea wrong, and they misinterpreted it, and it just brought destruction to the world and pain and misery to everybody. But the basic idea is an idea. It's an idea that everybody should be thinking about. So in some weird way, maybe it's better to think improperly about Mashiach than not to think about it at all, because at least you're thinking about Mashiach and you can be redirected. So, okay, so what's this idea of Mashiach? The idea of Mashiach is to make this world a reflection of the essence of God. Because according to Judaism, God did not create this world as a secondary exercise. God created this world because this world is tremendously important to God. And every detail of this world is tremendously important. So to speak, we can even say God needs the world. What does it mean, needs the world? Well, why did he create it? Because he doesn't care? Doesn't make any difference to him? Every detail in the world is tremendously, every second, every human being is tremendously important to God. To the degree that this world is infinitely more godly than going to heaven, but it's concealed. It's tremendously concealed. In heaven, it's not concealed at all, but you don't get the prize. You know, you don't get the it's like, you know, I mean, I just took this example, but maybe it's a bad one. Nowadays, they have these, you know, men, they say, I'm a woman, and they compete. So let's say, you know, the average woman, she can lift up 200 pounds, but you get some huge guy who weighs like 350 pounds, and he says, I'm a woman. And so now he can lift up 400 pounds. But okay, so he won, but what satisfaction do you get? There's no challenge. It's the same thing going into heaven. Heaven, you get all these big revelations, but there's no challenges in heaven. There's no challenges. Here in this world, there's challenge. Here in this world, there's challenge. But the point is this: in this physical world, we give God pleasure. Nachat ruach, reach nichoach. This world gives God pleasure. That's why we have the temple. That's why there's the sacrifices. That's why the whole thing. It's because we're doing what God wants. It makes no sense. God he needs a temple. He needs time. Oh no. 1 second. The set. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's working on my way. I just got a sign that says my microphone is not working, but it is working. Okay. 1 second. There we go. Okay. So let's go. Okay. So so again, Chassidut brought, and it talks about all these Kabbalistic ideas, and it explains them. But the main point of Chassidut is to explain how important this physical world is, and that when we use this physical world the way that God wants, it gives God pleasure. And this is a thing which is totally incomprehensible. And that's the idea of the raising of the dead, which the raising of the dead is totally incomprehensible. And the Rebbe explains that the raising of the dead is only a revelation of what happens when we do a commandment. So doing a commandment in this world is higher than the raising of the dead. We just don't see it. And that's the idea of why the Hasidim are happy, because we're not waiting to go somewhere else. It's just we're doing work here, even though we don't see it. But we believe that here, what we're doing right now is infinite. And are we going to get a reward or not? It's not our concern. Okay, so that's the idea of the Rebbe coming to America on the 28th day of Sivan, and eventually coming into America to a place, 770 Eastern Parkway, and eventually from that place spreading Judaism all over the world to the furthest places. Okay, so he says this whole idea of spreading out by means of the teachings of Chassidut. Now, if you don't have any idea what we're talking about over here, this idea of Chassidut, that's what we learn in the morning. But these are speeches, essays, discourses given by the rabbis of Chabad, that there's nothing like it in the world. Nothing like it in the world. It makes use of the ideas of Kabbalah, but it uses it in order to inspire love and awe and fear in doing the commandments, mainly. Doing the commandment and learning Torah. So that's what's called making a dwelling for God. In other words, the feeling of learning about the essence of God, but tachtonim in this physical world. In this physical world, so that we reveal how important this world is to God. That's why it says Moshiach is going to build the third temple, first of all, and then the Jews are going to so much want to do the commandments, they're going to go crazy. They're going to all come to Israel to do the commandments, because that's, with a temple, that's the only way you can do all the commandments. And that's the idea of the earth. That's what's in the news now. The land of Israel, land of Israel, this land, right? It's not the land, it's Israel, it's Palestine, from the corner, from the river to the this, you know. Okay, where is Palestine? What are the boundaries? Nobody knows, they don't even care. In the Torah, it says clearly what the boundaries of the land of Israel are. Why does God care? Because God cares about the world. That's the whole idea, the physical world. I mean, you want to give the God forbid, even to think for 1 second that the land of Israel could belong to anybody. So, I mean, if you think it can belong to somebody else, so, you know, why not give it to the Nazis? You know, give it to the Hamas. You know, if it can belong to anybody, so, you know, giving it to Hamas is worse than like giving it to dogs or something. Dogs act like dogs. Hamas, they don't even act like human beings. To say that they have a claim to the land of Israel is the most insane thing. It's like a person getting married to a rock or something like that. It's just not, not in the same. You go to hear a music concert and you come there and there's on the stage is a tree. That's a concert. It's the same thing. The Holy Land of Israel, who's living here? A bunch of monkeys, a bunch of dogs, right? That's what the Hamas, that's you're going to give it to them. How does that even come to the? So he says, that's the idea. We have to make the land, the world holy. And only the Jewish people could do that, but you have to wake them up. And that's what's called, the Chassidut wakes up the Jewish people to do it. That's what it's called, Yafutzu Ma'anatachutza. We have to spread out godliness, the Mayanot, the secrets of the Torah, Mayanot, that's the well springs, out chutza. And earlier the Rebbe said that when Moses sent the spies into the land of Israel, it says, V'yaturu et Eretz Israel, Yaturu. Turu, Meretz Israel, means you survey the place, but also the word from Turu, from Yitaron. There's an advantage to the physical world. Yaturu means to reveal the holiness of the physical land. That means revealing godliness. Godliness. It says only by means of spreading out godliness to the lowest places, Nikeris, can you see clearly that the whole purpose of what godliness really is. Hashem, God, can only be revealed really in this world. In the upper worlds, it's just a ray of godliness. Only in this physical world can we see that there's nothing except for God. All those people that say that the goal of Judaism is to go to heaven, which, I mean, the fact is that, that's a very good goal, and it's a nice thing to go to heaven. But if you say that's the goal, what does it mean? You're saying basically like the other religions say, that this world is a bad place and the good place is going to heaven, right? So that there's of course that this world is terrible, right? But ideally it's not. Ideally this world is good. That's what it says in the creation, right in the beginning of creation, that God saw everything he made and it was very good. And it seems that he said that after Adam ate from the tree. It was the last thing that God said, right before Shabbat came in. This is Yom HaShishi. And Adam ate from the tree like a few hours before. So that's like miracles that are in nature, like we talked about Gimel Tammuz. Remember, that's what we talked about. That's the whole idea of spreading out Judaism outwards, and not just Judaism, the secrets, the inside of Judaism. Before Chabad came into the world, Judaism was like a religion. It was the true religion. It was the right religion. It was basis to. We had basis to it. We had more witnesses to it. That nothing like it. But when the Chabad came along, as Judaism, it became not just a religion. Judaism, of course, is a religion, but it became much more than that. It became the expression of the Creator, the plan of the Creator for his whole entire creation, and to reveal how important every human being is. That's what Jews are chosen. We're chosen to tell every human being how much God loves them. And that's the idea of spreading out the secrets of the inside of the Torah in a true way, in a way that it's revealed, Hayitaron, the new novelty, advantage, and the hidden power from chutza outside. That this helps and reveals godliness even more in a higher way than it could be in any way if you just stayed inside. If you just left the secrets of the Torah inside for holy people. Maybe we can also say that the power to do this, this whole business started by revealing the good of this world, the essence of what this world is, but it was by means of suffering. First of all, there was the suffering of the first, the Jews, the Jews were born in suffering. Judaism was born in Egypt, right? So that's what the whole thing started off as something. But here we have recently, in our times, we have Chassidut, the whole idea of Chassidut, which is devoted totally and solely to bringing Mashiach, as that began with the redemption of the first Rebbe of Chabad. The first Rebbe of Chabad was put into prison, and he miraculously got out. And when he got out, it says he asked when the first Rebbe of Chabad was sitting in prison, so he was visited by the Maggid of Mezrich and the Baal Shem Tov that they had passed away years before, and he was visited physically by them, and they told him the reason you're sitting in prison is because you're spreading out a lot of these ideas of Chassidut, and you should continue doing it. So he was sitting there because he was Yafutzu Ma'anatach Chutza. He was spreading out the well springs outward. By that, it says when the first Rebbe of Chabad, when he got out of prison, he said, when I read in the book of Psalms, in the sentence, Para b'shalom nafshi, right? What is this? Psalm, whatever, 45, right? What is it? 55. What happened? Oh, there it is, 55. See, I read in the sentence, 55, Psalm, Para b'shalom nafshi. When I read that, but Yatzati, I went out in peace. That's the idea of the future redemption. There's going to be peace. What does it mean, peace? That all the opposites are going to come together. And the biggest opposite, of course, of all is the creator and the creation. That's the idea of Para b'shalom nafshi. That's the main thing, is spreading chassidut outwards. Why? Because it says, Ki barabim hayu emodi. In that sentence, it says, Para b'shalom nafshi, mikrovli ki barabim, with a multitude, you were with me. They were with me. What does it mean? This indicates on the whole idea of rabim, multitudes, namely the world. All the divisiveness and the world becomes with me. It becomes unified. That you don't have to work anymore. Your enemies become your friends. Until this will help and bring unity. I mean, the Rebbe said a lot of times that if we Jews would just be strong, the Rebbe said it many times, to go to the United Nations and say, the land of Israel belongs to us because God gave it to us. That's what it says in the Torah. You have problems with that, go to God. It's not my issue. As far as I'm concerned, I would live in Chicago, any place, what a difference it makes. But God made me a Jew, and God made such a thing as Jewish people, and God gave them the land of Israel. And God is creating the whole world, and He's creating you people also in the United Nations. So, if you've got problems, you're messing with God. Which says that's the whole idea, to make the world a unified place. If the Jews own Israel, then it's a sign that there's one real owner to the whole entire world, and that's God. And God is the same person that's creating all of these 9 billion people in the world, each and every one of them. Okay, so everything becomes unified. We see every human being is here for a purpose. But first of all, we have to prove that the world, earth, is what's unifying us. That God shines His truth from the land of Israel. What's the truth? That God's creating everyone from love. Therefore, this brings a para b'shalom, and brings peace. That's the first Rebbe of Chabad. He wanted to bring peace into the world. That even the opposers to the Rebbe, they became his best friends. And that's what it's going to be also in the future. It says, it says that God says that I will transform all of the nations to call to me. It's a sense in Tzfanya. The Maimonides brings it in the end. Prophet Tzfanya. That all of the non-Jews will see that all of the religions are lies, and that the people that they call their great leaders were just lying to them. They weren't telling the truth at all. And that the only time that anyone told the truth to the world was when God told the truth to the Jewish people at Sinai. And everyone will see it, and everyone will understand it. Says the Rebbe that that's what happened with the first Rebbe of Chabad. He started to reveal the godliness. But a completion, this really came after. There was also many, many levels after the first Rebbe of Chabad got out. After the first Rebbe of Chabad, that it finally, there were generations in Lubavitcher, and then finally it came to the fifth Rebbe of Chabad. He came to Rostov. That was the fifth Rebbe of Chabad. When World War I broke out, he had to run away from Lubavitch, and he went to Lubavitch. Chabad was in the city of Lubavitch for like 100 years, 102 years, something. And then they had to move to the city of Rostov, which was more to the east, where there wasn't battles over there. And then afterwards, with the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, he was put into prison. He went to Leningrad, or how it's called now, it's called Petersburg. Went back to Petersburg again. It used to be called, and it came back again. And then after that, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, he had to move again. He went to Poland. And then afterwards, he finally came to Israel, to America. Came to the land of America. What happened in America? America is on the opposite side of the world where the Torah was given. Oh, and now we're really starting to reveal godliness in the lowest places. That's in the opposite side of the world where the Torah hadn't been given. They didn't know anything about the Torah. And it says, and finally it came down into 770 Eastern Parkway. And now the Rebbe is going to start talking about the building of 770 Eastern Parkway. That from that building is going to be revealed Chassidut and spreading out godliness. This is specifically in the opposite side of the world, called the bottom half of the world where the Torah was not given. That Matan Torah, the Torah was not given in a revealed way. The Torah, of course, was given to the whole world. That's where really Chassidut really started spreading out. More than any of the other generations previously. The generations previously, they spread out ideas of Chassidut. They were trapped in Russia, and the Chassidut was only for the Chassidim in Russia. And when the previous Rebbe got out, he started translating these ideas of Chassidut, and he said simple discourses that everyone could understand. And he started dealing with non-religious Jews. It was unheard of that you would reach out to non-religious Jews, right? In America, this was in 1940 when the previous Rebbe got to America. It was unheard of, that you would make an effort to reach out to non-religious Jews that they should learn ideas of Torah, and especially these deepest ideas. That's the lowest of the low. And that's what the sentence that says, Yitron Eretz Bakalhi. Says the vantage of the earth is in everything. It's a sentence in Proverbs, I think. Proverbs. Similarly, it's also understood when the Torah was given when the Rebbe came to the land of America, then it meant that the Torah was, when the Torah was given, it was given on the top part of the world, Israel, Europe, when it came to Israel, to America, that was a place where the Torah was not given in a revealed way. So when the Rebbe came there, it meant that the Torah was given also in the lower part of the world, also in the opposite part of the world. And that's the whole idea of 770 Eastern Parkway. 770, that's the center where Lubavitcher is, that's specifically in the opposite side of the world where the Torah was given. 770, like it's known, that 770 is the numerical value of paratsta, spreading out. And we can say that also 770 is the numerical value of Beit Mashiach, the house of the Mashiach, the house of the Messiah. The number 7, this indicates the whole 7 days of creation. 7 days of creation. And the number 7D, this is how each one of the 7 is contained with 10. And 100 times 7 is 700. So we have 100 times 7 and 10 times 7. And so together that makes 770. That's the numerical value of spreading out, paratsta, ufaratsta. That's what God told Jacob. You should spread out, spreading Judaism out over the whole entire world. Because again, Judaism is not only for the Jews. Jews are supposed to spread. Judaism is the word of the Creator to the whole world. So true, only Jews do the commandments, right? 90, whatever is 80% of what's in the Torah is only for the Jews. But there's the 7 Noahide commandments. And the Jews are supposed to bring the whole entire world to do it. That's what the Maimonides says. The Jews are supposed to force or convince the whole entire world to do their 7 Noahide commandments because it is written in the Torah. So if so, the responsibility of all mankind is on the Jews. Judaism is not just a religion that has to try to keep away from everybody so that they don't notice us. Like the spies that Moses sent in said we were like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we were also that way in their eyes. Grasshoppers. Says the Rebbe, no, not so. Our job is to spread Judaism, to spread the directives of God, the Creator, to the whole entire creation. And it starts from 770. Says the Rebbe, that from 770, from this place, that's where the whole thing is beginning. That's where the whole thing of Mashiach is occurring. In other words, that together with this, that there is spreading out, we have to spread out in every direction above any limitation. There's also, have to be in a place. We're talking about this physical world, and this physical world is physical. Place, time, details. Like the law is that in a place of a building, there has to be 4 walls, there has to be a ceiling, right? If there's not, then it's a question: could you put a mezuzah on the door or not? But that's up. You want to make a dwelling. A dwelling has details to it. The Holy Temple has details, right? Just like the world has details. But in time in itself, right? All these scientists, as they're revealing more and more details on how amazingly miraculous every little molecule of the world is. And it's even more, you'll see that scientists will reveal even more and more and more details. Incredible. And that's just like in one little, whatever it is, atom or whatever it's called, a quark or something like that. And what about the whole universe? What about all the planets, all the stars, all the nebulae? How many quarks are there in every single planet? Right? And each one of these details is important to God. But what's most important to God, even if there's life on Mars or whatever, the Rebbe said, is this physical world where the Torah was given. And our job is not to convince the Martians or whatever it is to do 7 Noahide commandments, is to convince the people in this physical world to do the 7 Noahide commandments. He said, in time and in place. Every individual has to maintain his individuality. We're not talking about going, like taking guns and say, okay, everybody do the commandments. If not, we're going to kill you. Big brother is watching. We got cameras all over the place, and we got spies. No, we're talking about there's no spies and there's no cameras, right? God is watching everybody. God loves everybody. And he's creating everybody. So, he's giving you an opportunity just to do what's true. And what's going to happen if you don't do the truth? It's not a concern. That's not our concern. Our concern is to do the truth because it's the truth. And that's what our job is, but it has to be in the physical world with all of the details. Like it says by Jerusalem, it says, B'Yushem, Prazos Teshav Yerushalayim. It says the city of Jerusalem, which was very limited, and it had very clear boundaries of where's the temple and the 10 different levels of holiness that are in Jerusalem, whatever. It says, nevertheless, it says, in the future, Prazos, Jerusalem will be open. But at the same time, it says, God said, but I will be a wall of fire around Jerusalem. So there will be a wall, right? So it won't be totally open. It says, no, it says it's going to be totally open. So it'll be both together. That's the whole numerical value of 770. That's the numerical value of paratsta, breaking through, spreading out all Judaism everywhere. This becomes the source and the empowering of spreading out everywhere in the world. 770. That's the place that gives the power to spread out godliness in the whole entire world until the outer, that there's no out more out than it. So we can say that is also eventually will bring about what's called wholesomeness in the whole world. And that's represented by 70. And that's the 70 years that the previous Rebbe lived. The previous Rebbe passed away in 1950, and he was born 70 years before that. He was born in 1880. 1870, sorry. He was born in 1870, and he passed away. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. 1880 he was born, and he passed away in 1950. Passed away in 1950. So he lived 70 years. And in the last 10 years of his life was specifically in the bottom half of the world. In other words, in America, the side that's opposite where the Torah was given. And he lived in this place called 770, in a place where he worked and he lived in the last 10 years of his life, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Now, again, according to what the Rebbe said, and that's what we learned, if you remember the beginning of this week, that the reason that the Iron Curtain fell so suddenly and miraculously and peacefully in 1990 was all because of the work of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Because the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe sat in prison in 1927, and he defied totally all of the threats of communism. And like we said before, that some people say that Stalin killed 50 million of his own people. So killing someone was like, nothing. And the previous Rebbe was like public enemy number one. So it was impossible that he wouldn't be killed. Impossible that he wouldn't be killed. Makes no sense. It's like putting one sheep in the middle of 9 million, how many people live in Russia? Let's say 300 million hungry wolves. Impossible that they shouldn't. And nevertheless, not only did he live by hiding himself and getting out and making all sorts of deals, he was frontal. He opposed them frontally. I think I told you the story, but I'll tell it again. That the previous Rebbe, they told him he was free, that they were going to let him, they were sending him into exile. And they told him this on a Thursday, which was the first, it was the last day of Sivan. It was the month, Rosh Chodesh. So they told him he was free. He said, one second, how am I going to get to Kas from the place where he was in exile? They said, you have to take a train. So he said, when am I going to arrive there? He says, on Shabbat. He says, I'll stay in prison. Because he knew that they arranged it that he would arrive there on Shabbat so that they would be able to advertise that the Lubavitcher Rebbe, in order to save his life, he traveled on Shabbat, which is permissible according to the Torah. But people don't know that. They know that Jews say that Shabbat is holy, and here's this rabbi that, maybe it's not so holy. When it comes down to me, it's not so holy. So he remained in prison. So he defied them. He said, I'm not afraid of you. I'll stay I'll stay forever, but I'm not going to defile the Shabbat. Right. So in other words, he was the boss, says the Rebbe, because he asserted his connection to God in such a terrible place, and he won. So because God really does exist and God really is true, and communism was really not true, so now communism also doesn't exist. Says that's the idea of Yitrona Oretz. That's the idea that the physical world has an advantage to it more than anything else. And that's the whole idea of the 28th day of Sivan. The 28th day of Sivan, that was the day that the Rebbe is talking about himself, that he arrived in America and he began the whole total new enthusiasm for Mashiach. That this revealed a new power of the third month of Tammuz, the month of Sivan, and Sivan is the third month, and that's the Torah is also triple. There's Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, and the Jewish people are a triple people, right? That's in the third month. That's the Kohanim, Levim, and the Israelim, and everything that's triple is attached to the giving of the Torah. There were 3 days of preparation they had, and that's revealing Yitron Oretz Bakalu. That's revealing the advantage, the novelty that can be gotten only from the physical world. That's revealed in a permanent way. Says that's especially relevant to our generation. And our generation, even though we're found now in a physical world, in a terrible, terrible exile, and we're found in the lowest place in the world, opposite where the Torah was given, but specifically in such a low place that we're in the lowest there could possibly be. Here we can lift things up to the highest place. Like it says, if you want to lift up a building, so you put the jack under the lowest place of the building. We want to lift the whole creation. It has to be from the lowest place. Of course, you have to know how to do it. And that's the power of the Rebbe's. You can't just make up your own things and, decide I'm going to go into the bars and, scream out, God is one. It's not going to work. As we know, that we learned before that the word geula, redemption, that the Jewish people will be redeemed and the whole entire world will be filled with godliness, it doesn't mean getting rid of anything. It just means adding the letter aleph to the word gola. Gola is exile, and you put the letter aleph into it. Geula is drawn down by means of working in the world, but bringing the aleph, namely the oneness of God, into the exile. And this not everybody can do. You have to be very, very careful. It's very, very easy to fool yourself, and that the world will conquer you instead of you conquering the world. The Rebbe has another speech, this is in Chanukah. He talks about also Greece, Yavan. Yavan is Yud, that's holy, comes down lower and then even lower. That's the idea that the future redemption will be in the lowest place possible. Therefore, it brings about a complete redemption. A gula nitzchis she'enach regalas. it says that one of the things about Mashiach is that before Mashiach, the Rambam says, is that for sure all the Jewish people are going to do tshuva. And then Mashiach will come. For sure, Rambam says, everyone. Now, if you look in Israel, you see, what does it mean for sure everyone's going to do tshuva? I mean, there's a lot of like really big, terrible sinners in Israel. I mean, really, really bad news. You know, this thing about October the 7th, I mean, there's very strong indications that people in our government, they're the ones that caused it and enabled it and they told the army not to come. And these are the lowest of the low, right? The government of Israel, you know, they're letting the missionaries come into this. I mean, it says all those people are going to do tshuva. They're all going to lo yidach mimenu nidach. These people are the nidachim. They're the pushed, the furthest away, most disgusting low people. They'll all do tshuva. All of them. Even those guys in the Turi Karta that are cursing everybody else, they'll also do tshuva. Which, I mean, that's a little bit hard for me to believe, but that doesn't make any difference what I believe. They'll all do tshuva. Everyone. And it says on this, that means that all the Jewish people from the lowest will all do tshuva. That's the idea of Chassidut, is revealing the holiness of the Jewish people. And all the Jewish, then will be said a new song, masculine, not Shira Chadash. When the Jewish people came from Egypt, they went over the sea, so they sang Shira Chadash, they sang a new song from below to above. In the future, there's going to be a song from above to below. Not like all the previous redemptions that we had before from Babylon and from Egypt and from Greece, and so that afterwards there was exile. But by means of this, that we reached the lowest of the lowest levels, that this is the thing that when the lowest levels, they're fixed up, then it'll be permanent. Okay, like I say, only the Rebbes could do this. You can't take it on yourself. You can't do it. Even the holiest of holies, they couldn't do it. I think I told you the story, and I'll tell you the story again. 1 second. That's the idea of this. That's Sfirot Malchut. That's the physical world. That's the idea of the earth. That's why the land of Israel, it's talking about the world, the lowest place of all. That's what's going to reveal. That's the idea of 770 Eastern Park, which says the Mashiach, that the third temple is going to come to 770 first. The Rebbe brings it from Gomorrah. It's going to come to Beit Rabbeinu Shabbavel, and from there it's going to go to Israel. That's the idea of the Mashiach coming. That'll be redemption, revealing godliness in this physical world, that there's nothing lower than it. That's what's called the dwelling for God in the physical world. And in this that's what will be revealed. The Geula, the Aleph will come into Gola, and that'll be the true redemption of all of the Jewish people, including me and you, which should be immediately. Have a good day with Mashiach. Now, well, let's do the Yom Yom, and then I'll tell you a story. Hope I don't forget the story. I think I already forgot it. Here, let's try it. Here we go.